Welcome to the exciting study of statistics. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we are going to learn this semester in an overview type of sense. And then we're going to talk about some of the basic definitions that we're going to be working with throughout the semester. So first of all, statistics is our methods for collecting and analyzing data. It can be collected through experimentation or just by asking people or simply observing what people do. That's what we mean by inquiry. We want to use that data to make conclusions about what's happening in the world around us in terms of what people do in general based on what we observe small sections of people doing that may be representative of that general larger population. And then, of course, we want to interpret and present our data in a manner that other people understand what we're talking about. So our observations are the data that have been collected. Raw data is just the collection of the data, the simple numbers that we're dealing with. We haven't manipulated it in any way. A population is a broad grouping of people. And then a sample is a subgroup within that population. So for example, my population could be something like all people in the world. That's a population. But a different population might be all people in America. It depends on the question that I'm asking. The population is defined by what it is that I'm interested in studying. So let's say that I'm trying to talk about something like a virus spreading, right? Maybe I'm interested in all people in the world. So my population might be all people, and a subset might be the people in the United States, or the people in Florida, or the people in Orlando. All of those would be subsets and could be taken as a sample. Now, we're going to talk about appropriate ways to take a sample. Just because something's a subset doesn't make it a good sample for statistical purposes. But to give you that idea. Now, if instead of talking about, a worldwide item, I'm talking about a local thing, maybe I'm talking about making a conclusion based on the students enrolled at Valencia. Then my population might be all Valencia students. And a sample within that population might be the Valencia students taking statistics. Or let's say that I want to know something about, say, the test grades of students in statistics. Now my population might be all students taking statistics. And then my subset of that population that I'm going to be studying might be a randomly selected 50 students who are currently enrolled in Valencia's statistics courses. And they're the ones I'm going to use for my sample, that subset. Descriptive statistics tell me about the data I've collected. They're a summary of my data. That's what we mean by descriptive statistics. Inferential statistics is where we make a conclusion about the larger population based on the sample data we've collected. The first part of the course here, we're going to look at descriptive statistics. And then once we move into Module 2, we'll start talking about some inferential statistics. Now, a variable is a characteristic that varies from person to person. For example, we could talk about people with different hair colors. That would be a variable. Or we could talk about people of different ages. That would be a variable, the age. Quantitative data is data that results in numbers, but they've got to be meaningful numbers. They represent a count or some sort of measurement. So for example, excuse me, things like an age or a GPA would be a meaningful quantitative data piece. But something like the number on your sports jersey, that's not really a measure of anything. That's more like a name. So even though that's a number, it's not a meaningful number. So that would not be quantitative, that would be categorical. Categorical or qualitative data is like names of things. So like my hair color would be a qualitative or a categorical data. So for example, if I look at the incomes of college graduates, that gives me back a numerical number that's quantitative. Genders of college graduates would be male, female, and so on. That would be categorical. Ethnicity would be our race. That would be categorical. Heights is something we measure. That would be quantitative. Now, when we're looking at data, we can discuss the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, why, and then of course how, which isn't really a W, but we always group that in with our who, what, when, where, why, right? So even though it's the 5 W's, it's the 5 W's plus how. Okay. Now the who is the information that we are collecting. Who is that about? What does that relate to? Okay, that's the who. The what is the information we're collecting. What variables are we recording? The when is when was the data collected? Where was the data collected? Why was the data collected? And then, of course, how was the data collected is the last question. All right, so looking at this chart, you can go ahead and pause the video and try and answer those 5 W's for yourself: who, what, when, where, why, and how. But if we're looking at the who, notice, this is all information about different nations. So that's my who. I'm studying Albania, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kosovo, Macedonia, Ukraine, USA. What are the variables listed here at the top? We are looking at the gross domestic product, the life expectancies for men and women, the doctors per 10,000 people, the rate of human development, I'm getting from right down here, right? And the gender inequality index. For each of those, I want to list also the units that they're in. Notice my gross domestic product is dollars, right? This is the typical money a person makes. So this is just straight out dollars. Life expectancy, I would expect this to be in years for both men and women. Doctors, I would expect that to be the number of doctors per 10,000 people. And my HDI, well, that's a index value, right? A high number meaning a poor life expectancy, and so on. So, we don't have a unit other than that index unit there. And the same with the gender inequality index. A high number means men and women are not treated equally, but other than it being an index number, I don't really have a unit to go with it. The GDP, the years, all of these are quantitative variables. They're all numbers that are being returned. Okay, so that was the who and the what. Where? Well, I know that this is from Culturegram's online database, but that's all I know about it. So I can't really give much more of a where than that. Who, what, when. Notice there's not a year on here. So I know the year of the source that I took it from, but that doesn't mean that that's the year that the data was collected. Don't make that mistake. So I can't really give a year either, or I can't give a when. So who, what, when can't be answered. Where can't be answered more than the grams online. Why is not specified. Now, probably it's to make comparisons to, improve standards of living in different countries, but that's not explicitly stated in the problem. The how is also not explicitly stated in the problem. How was probably by a census at each country, but we can't really say that without knowing that information for sure. Let's look at another example. For this description of data, I want to list the variables, decide if they're categorical or quantitative, and include the units. So once again, go ahead and pause here and read the question and attempt this yourself. Now, if we read this question, Notice it says they gathered 122 fish. That's the what? The 122 fish. What they recorded from here down are the variables. So first of all, species of fish would be categorical. The length in inches would be quantitative. The girth would be quantitative. The weight would be quantitative. And the overall health would be categorical. They also recorded the location, that's categorical. Now, for the quantitative ones, we also want to give the units. So species, nope, length in inches, girth in inches, weight in ounces. And then everything else is categorical. Okay, guys, this gives you enough information to do the homework for Chapter 1. Please email me with any questions you may have.